SNV. We have Surveyor Abunkundugu Asa Akunai, Head of Department, Agriculture Engineering, BTU, Bolga. Please take your seats as I mention your name. And then we have Mr. Dennis Asari, Energy Policy Analyst at Imani Africa. And then Mrs. Joyce Ejari, Executive Director at Smartline Publishers Limited. Please let us give it up to them as they take their seats. We have quite a smaller group of people here, but it also means that the conversation will be more interactive. And so we'll be pushing back to you and coming back to them so that we can all share ideas. This is not necessarily a lecture. It's a discussion with them leading. So we listen and then we also share all the ideas that we have. Thank you so much for joining us. And my name is Charles Jemfi Ofori. I am the Policy Lead, Climate Change and Energy Transition at the Africa Center for Energy Policy. So let's just zoom into the discussion. Now we have, towards achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement, we set up our NDCs. Now we have NDC 2.0. We are working towards NDC 3.0, bringing in another raft of targets and what's up and what not. The last time we checked, we had about 47 measures that we wanted to achieve. Financing needs is running between 9.3 billion to 15 billion US dollars. 3.9 billion from unconditional financing, 5.4 billion worth for conditional financing. But there are also a lot of policy gaps that we need to bridge in order to meet these targets. And so agency is very, very important. The latest reports on the climate targets, the tracker on NDCs and other climate targets shows, was published by the World Resources Institute, shows that agency is fading, vested interests are maintaining the status quo, and then we have bigger people who perhaps should have been more committed to the issues around climate change, like the US, actually scaling backwards. We've seen the Trump effect, and emissions are rising. So a critical question is whether these NDCs that we're talking about, are we on the road to achieving any target 5 years down the line towards 2030? What are we doing? Where are we? And what can we do to scale up? So I will go to, I will start with Dr. Jima. What policy gaps currently do you see are hindering Ghana's full implementation of its NDCs?
Thank you very much for the question. And I was telling my colleagues that it looks as if most of the issues we are going to talk about have already been highlighted in the earlier conversations. And so one of the critical things that we find with respect to our NDC targets and our ability to achieve the policy targets is the fragmented coordination among the various sectors and actors. And so when you talk about the climate change space, there are various sectors that come into play to get a holistic picture. You have energy, you have food, you have water, you have health, and all those interrelated sectors. And you realize that each sector is pursuing and trying to do what it can to achieve a particular target. And because of the limited coordination between the sectors and even the actors at various levels, between the national level, local level, and even at the public sector, there are numerous acted CBOs, everybody playing their role, and nobody really coordinating everything together to see what the bigger picture is. In such an instance, we realize that there's a lot of duplication of efforts. And so we are not building on what we have been able to achieve. Everybody is doing something, and we don't know where we have reached collectively. And then you realize that when I read the policy, there are different platforms which are trying to track progress. So the NDPC has its own platform which is using to track progress at a certain level. The EPA is also tracking progress at another level. And then the finance department is also doing that. If we had an integrated platform where we can get real-time data on what we are doing, then we can have better M&E results to inform what we are doing. One other thing I would like to mention is the issue of funding. So we have the policies, but we don't have the funds to support its implementation. And so what happens is that we have the fine ideas, but we are counting on foreign donors to, one way or the other, support us along the way. And so when these funds do not come, we are not able to implement anything. And even when they do come, they come with their own directives and areas where they want the funds to be used for. And this will still contribute to the issue of duplication of efforts. I think these and the real-time data to integrate everything that is happening are some of the policy gaps that do not allow us to be able to see our way forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc. I will come back with a follow-up on, you talk about coordination. So it means that there should be a certain form of ownership. So my next question to you, which I'll come back to you, will be who should own it and who should be responsible for that coordination? How can that single entity, and what responsibility should they have in terms of managing all the sectoral things that you've talked about? So I'll come back to you. You can consider that. All right. So Dennis, I'll come to you. I think we've talked a lot about climate financing. Doc mentioned some points around finance, and I know you've done some work as well on climate financing. Could you share more light on the challenge of financing and how we can be more innovative around creating, the better financing to really deal with how we can implement our climate action targets? The mic.
Thank you very much. So, sorry. So I think Doc has laid a very good foundation on the policy side, so I wouldn't have to come back to that. But in terms of financing climate interventions, typically we look at it from two main perspectives. So there's a way where you can use public financing to now stimulate investment, or how you then use public financing to unlock more private sector financing, as well as combining domestic public financing, private sector financing, then to also unlock international financing. So the first thing is that, as Doc mentioned, after the NDCs have been prepared and converted into policies, typically they are political ambitions that we have translated into policies. Then the next dimension is that how then do we finance these interventions, which means that we understand the institutions that must implement them. Now we have to then create, how do we create a pipeline of interventions to actually actualize these policy ideas that we have. So that has been some of the biggest challenge, trying to create that pipeline of interventions or pipeline of projects that will then bring into fruition that policy intentions or policy ideas that we have. That has become the challenge. Another aspect too is that if you look at our current public financial management architecture, we have not been very deliberate in understanding how the kind of activities in our NDCs that we want to address using public financing. So if you take the medium-term expenditure framework, you see that every ministry and agency is doing something around climate change. Then you ask yourself, which specific goal within the NDC are these activities aligned to address? What specific risk are we trying to address using these expenditure? So over the last 10 years, you will find a number of financial investment or commitment on climate-related expenditure. However, you can't seem to track it to a particular point. And as Doc mentioned, everybody is doing something else. So there's a ministry or a department or agency that has a DP funding doing their own climate project. That one does not come through the climate fin track at the Ministry of Finance. So the Ministry of Finance is not even aware. Then the same project can also be built as part of their capital expenditure. Then public finances will also then be also used to do the same kind of work. So we have not carefully sat down to look at, considering these activities within our NDCs, these are the specific financing pipelines that we want to use to address them. Then how then do we also create a space within our PFM to create incentives for the private sector? Mind you, the NDCs are ambitions, but if you distill them, they become business pipeline activities or projects, which will be done by the private sector or through a public-private partnership. Then you have to now understand, how then do I use my public financial management to create incentives for the private sector to invest in those activities? How do I create incentives that will make those projects that private sector comes up bankable and attractive to my commercial banking sector? How do I use my concessionary funding from development partners and other DFIs and bilateral partners to then de-risk some areas that traditional banks will not go into? So until we address all of those problems, we will have a number of ideas, a number of projects within the NDCs. But if you don't address these problems, then it becomes very difficult for someone to then say that I want to invest in, let's say, clean cooking. But when I'm investing in clean cooking, what are some of the incentives? Two, what are the available pipeline of projects that are bankable? And let me also say that the fact that it's climate doesn't mean that it is compulsory for someone to invest in it, because Africa faces a lot of risk, Ghana is standing at the rate. People invest in climate projects not purely out of environmental ideas, but practically also because it is business. And so we have to make sure that the business sense is there, then the environmental sense becomes the end game. If you don't solve that aspect, it becomes a bit of a challenge. So
all right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dennis. I think you've touched a lot about trying to bring in the PFM issues, and also you talked a lot also about how we can look at how we can push our goals and our targets, or track our various initiatives that we are doing from a sectoral basis towards the NDCs that we want to achieve. And then you bring in the issues around financing and translating our ambitions into pipeline projects that are more useful for PPPs, that are more useful for both the public and the private sector. Again, the data has shown that grant funding or donor funding has become the major source of funds for climate action in most parts of Africa, particularly Ghana. But we see that there are more financing pathways that we can have. So thanks for bringing these things up. Now I'll come back to you, Surveyor. Again, the issues around implementation of our NDCs also rest on innovation. A scan of the technology side of things have always shown that most of the technologies are imported. Our solar panels are imported. The clean technologies are largely imported. So the question really is, how can engineering innovations support climate adaptation? And I know you have an agriculture engineering background, but I really want to bring the engineer in you. So maybe you can just speak broadly around engineering, and you can choose to narrow down to the agri side of things.
Thank you. I think my colleagues have spoken on coordination and then financing. I think engineering cannot solve the problems. Engineering basically is the solution, applying science to solve social problems. And that will require coordination and then financing. So we're coming back to the same place. So generally, there are a lot of innovations that we do. There are a lot of, all the universities, we do research. we produce equipment and machines that can help solve some of the problems that we face, which are also related to our NDCs. But then, the collaboration is not there between academia and funding units and departments. Even government funding is not really coming to the universities and the research institution unless you write and get a grant. The state Ghana, I'm not sure they even have a funding source for any engineering research work, apart from the CSIR people but still, they even still have to source of funding outside. But we have a lot we can do. For instance, you said I should do generally, but I will have to go back to my Greek. Climate, Prof said earlier, is about time and temperature. We all know here that in the north, the temperature is always high, meaning our water resources, surface water resources, will be drying up faster than we expect. And we will need to support our farmers with the water resources to produce for our own consumption. But if the temperatures are high and it's drying out, where are they going to get the water? Maybe we should look at more sustainable water resources down underground. But that will also require energy to lift it from where it is. In fact, to get there, you need technology to get to the water and then to lift it up and apply it to the crops. So the innovations, we are on them. Not everything that is important really, but the fact is the resources is limited, but then we are on. Yeah. That's what I can say for now.
Yeah. Sophia, I also come back to you on another question. Maybe you think through it. Beyond our solar, beyond our electric vehicles, because the moment we talk of climate change, these are some of the things that we talk about. And our energy transition framework has been talking about homegrown solutions. Maybe I want to understand from your side, what are some of these homegrown solutions that you have seen that you believe could be worth it when we go deep into it in terms of how we are engineering some of those solutions to solve Ghana's, particular climate situation. So I'll come back to that. Now, I want us to move to the issue around communication, and Mrs. Ejare, you help us with that. We've seen a lot of misconceptions around climate action. I don't think people even understand, the average person understands what the NDCs are, what they are supposed to mean. We saw the kind of campaign we did when COVID came. We saw the AIDS campaign. We saw malaria campaign. We are not seeing such issues around climate. People haven't seen CO2 before. People haven't seen methane before. So how do we amplify this public understanding of something that we have not seen, something that is so far-fetched, something that their impact perhaps is something that will be felt in the future, and so we shouldn't be bothered? How do we amplify public understanding and of our climate commitments, especially through the NDCs?
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. We had a full room earlier on, and I'm not sure that there were many people from the publishing industry, which is where I'm coming from. We've been talking about, funding to support some of these endeavors, but there are natural ways that we already have through which we can educate ourselves and also get policies from air-conditioned rooms to the people. So the publishing industry will be one of the main vehicles for this to happen. But we are largely never part of a conversation like this, which is truly unfortunate. I strongly believe in something called Kachemeli, and Kachemeli is about getting young people to have mindset shifts, which will ensure that they look after the environment better than we have done. So definitely publishing and media are two main ways of bringing the information to to the people who consume it. It's pretty much like, a destination, right? Because the NDCs have already been proclaimed, but you're going to be needing a vehicle to move, information from one place to the other. So you get your driver and the vehicle and everything, but there are no passengers. And you actually do travel to the destination. You turn around and find that you actually didn't carry anybody along with you. So that is where the publishing industry comes in. It's crucial that some of this information is sitting within the curriculum, and that can be packaged by, the publishing industry in a way that is relatable to the end user. So those conversations can be had. Everything has literacy to do with it. So there is something called climate literacy. And you will find that even people like my good self who, are working in different industries know next to nothing about the NDCs because we haven't mainstreamed that conversation. And to do that, you're going to be needing, and dare I say, the Shatawales of our day. I mean, the guy was having his birthday party and the fire service had to appear because all the young people were there. Why don't we get brand ambassadors and, such people to outdoor this kind of rhetoric so that it's mainstreamed and people get it? Because we're going to be needing a chunk of our population to talk about this as, everyday conversation. If we take a class 5 kid and we ask them what the NDCs are, would they know what it is? Do they know anything about greenhouse effect?
Let's go to Makola.
Let's go to Makola. So publishing and the media, for that matter, are crucial in this conversation. We were talking about, the siloed conversations, right? Publishing is one of the threads. And I dare say that if any of, the entities that organize this conference have something to say, they would go to the, the communications person within their unit to print a brochure or something. But publishers eat and drink publications. They know how to package information for the target audience. So all those things should be brought to entities like ours so that we can, put the information together and distribute it in the right arenas.
So I have a personal question.
Okay.
So let's say I'm a scientist
Yes.
or I'm a finance person. I've published a document with all the big English, all the scientific jargons. It's about 200 pages. In fact, our Article 6 review reports are around 2,000, 3,000 pages long. And I want you to translate that into what do you need really as a publisher, as a mass educator, to translate somebody's scientific work in terms of the names and the jargons and all of that into a format that is easily absorbable by the average person?
I mean, that's what we eat and drink. Yes, you are, technocrats thinking about all sorts of things.
Yeah.
We are sitting there with editors, content developers to take a body of information and turn it into something that's palatable and that's relatable to a target audience. So you just leave it with the experts. You have the right conversations about this, and we will turn it into, what it is supposed to be. And not until we do that, we will struggle with getting the information from policy to people.
So do you think we should at what time should we bring publishers in? Is it at the conceptualization stage, or is it at the stage where we are done with everything and we want you to perhaps publish it?
I think it's right from when it starts.
Yeah.
Because then we will also have an understanding of the breadth of the entire conversation. And by the time we get to the end, we will have a product for you. And it's not just about books or putting things in the curriculum. Because, for instance, if you put something in the curriculum, it shouldn't be something that they regurgitate at the end.
Yeah.
It should be a conversation around a particular issue, that we are discussing. The most important thing is the stories to tell, there are songs to be sung, there's poetry. There's so many different areas where we can move policy to people through publishing and media.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ajari. So I'll come back to you, Engineer Surveyor. Homegrown solutions. What are they? And what do we see to be some of the homegrown solutions in Ghana?
Thank you. There are a lot of homegrown solutions that we are trying. Even look at Bar Stop Boys. They saw our drainage system being a problem, and they have stepped up to work on that. My colleague did, because Ghana, we're trying to also produce more rice. But then, depending on how the rice is produced, the emissions are different. So growing in, a colleague worked on rice that is grown by flooding and rice that is grown with just minimal water. And the emissions in the flooded rice was far, far more than the one with minimal water. So this comes to advise us on, if we want to go into more rice production and we also want to reduce the emissions, then we should look at the method of growing our rice so that we can reduce the emissions. A lot of our farmers, for instance, they want water to farm. In the north, for instance, because of changes in the climate, initially about 4 months duration is changing. And the change is such that the time of planting is moving forward, and within the rainy season, there is a drought. So you plant early, there's a drought, your seedlings wither. They need water to sustain the growth of the crops. So what do? A lot of farmers now are drilling boreholes, mechanizing it, putting pumps on it and helping themselves. But then, groundwater is also not, it has some limit you can withdraw. So we need engineering solutions to also monitor the groundwater abstractions so that we can harvest the water sustainably, so that we don't abstract all the water and our hand pumps are not able to give us water for consumption. So people are taking up tasks by themselves to solve their problems with engineering and homegrown. I can call that homegrown because I'm a farmer, I need water, I have to find the water. And the drilling machines, I don't think we can produce that. But then, to operate them and drill, there are other drilling equipment like this. The percussions ones, we can do that, but that will take a lot of human labor. So I think what we are able to do now is what we are doing. We have homegrown solutions, like I said, people will get water. Others who may not be able to drill boreholes on the river beds that will dry because of the temperature in the dry season, manually they will drill and put some small pumps and also abstract that for farming and other things. So we are trying to solve, but it's just also in the silos, as we said.
Yeah.
We have not taken it all as a go. My colleague, as I said, he also checked emissions in forested places, and there was a net abstraction of the greenhouse gases. So, but government once in a year will do reforestation. One of the presenters asked whether we are even monitoring to see whether those trees will grow. Are we doing any evaluations on them? No. I think if we want to do this, the funds we spend on those programs is something that you can target, and then even it will become opportunities for people to invest in. If you say people should do afforestation and get paid, I think we can get people to
Yeah.
do that. So we are innovating, but on the
Siloed basis. All right,
Thank you.
all right. So, Doc, let's bring it all home. Innovation, finance, communication. We're
Yes.
talking about coordination. Who should be
Yes.
responsible?
So I think the ministry should be responsible because they have the mother responsibility over all the other sectors that coordinate and work with them. In the past, I was tempted to think about EPA, but what about the NDPC and all that? So every sector that works under or related to issues around the ministry must be able to have a centralized system where they are all able to send their area of information and updates so that at the end of the day, the ministry can have a holistic picture of what is happening
So do
in
you
the
mean
sector.
Ministry of Energy or
No.
Environment or
Ministry of Environment,
Okay,
Science and
okay,
Technology,
yeah.
yes.
All right.
Because energy is a
It's
subsector
also
of,
within,
yes.
within the climate action.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So I'll come back to you, audience. I know there are a lot of things that we've discussed pertaining to our NDCs. As I said, we can break them into various themes. We talked about coordination. We talked about a little bit around financing. We've talked about innovation. And we've talked about communication, effective communication. And today we saw a very nice way of putting our SDGs into a way that is easily communicable to both traditional, non-traditional, state, non-state actors. Maybe, Doc, you should think about translating NDCs also using some of these symbols as well. That could be useful for us in terms of, climate literacy and climate communication. So I also want to hear from you. What do you think we should do? What are some of the most promising pathways for Ghana's NDCs? And what are some of the challenges that you see and you notice as far as the implementation of our NDCs are concerned? And what do you think should be the way forward? I know there's no specific government person in the room, but sometimes some of these solutions help us to also advocate to people that we see and people that we take note of. If you don't talk, I'll come to you with the mic. So, yes, thank you so much, sir. I'm coming.
Thank you very much. I'm from Wisconsin University. Somehow, I got the invitation late. But looking at the topics, the themes, I saw climate action. And I'd say, oh, let me come and see how these things are. Climate actions could be gradual in terms of agriculture and so on. For example, coming from the coastal zone and climate, which means thawing of ice, rising coastal phenomenon. So I've been expecting that there'll be some things, some actions or collaborations in relation to coastal erosion, which I think is a climate activity. Adaptation, serious adaptation issue. But it comes usually as an emergency. If it's an emergency, which departments are responsible? Because the one which happened, was it last year or somewhere this year, along the Peter, Adina, getting to Loma. And of course the secondly, along the coast, this activity it borders on disasters. So disasters in climate, or disasters in relation to unpredictable climate activities. How do we go about this? This is why I actually wanted to be here.
All right, thank you. I'm coming up. Doc, I won't let you go. So you have to tell me something about communication and literacy based on what you've done so far.
Thank you so much. Thank you, panel. It's been a very informative discussion. I think when I was coming, I was even having this discussion with my husband, and we're asking ourselves, how can we get this Edinkra symbology, Edinkra texture to the ordinary Ghanaian? Like my dear madam talked about publishing, we need to push it everywhere, from the basic schools to traditional and social media. Now TikTok, you can even have a platform where a goal comes up every day. There's a goal with the Edinkra symbology, its reference or its relevance to the Sustainable Development Goals, so that it gets to a point that everybody knows. Even publishing, the basic books, our world, our culture, now a lot of books are coming. Can we adapt some of these things and push it out there so that our kids, one chapter of the book is talking about SDGs, localizing the SDGs, making it understandable to the layperson. So I think there are so many things we can do, but get it out there. We are doing one conference, but how far would this conference go? The ordinary person on the street hawking, the climate change is even affecting them the most. They are most vulnerable, but they don't know what they can do. So I think that's what I think we should do.
Thank you very much. Maybe let me come to this side of the room. You've heard quite a lot of things. Are there anything that really, pricks your mind, that draws a lot of attention? So you are nodding a lot. Let me come to you.
Thank you very much. I think my thoughts is on education. Like one of the panelists said, we seem not to even be aware of what is climate change at all and what is happening in our time. So there must be some kind of an approach where this education must run through and then get some brand ambassadors to champion this cause, so that at the end of the day, as we are talking about other things like you rightly mentioned, the AIDS program, COVID program, why not climate change matters, so that we can take it on a higher pedestal. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, any other any other reaction from the group? Okay, so I'll come back to the audience. Come back to the panel. I know we are a bit hard pressed with time, so maybe I would want to take your final comments around how we can really ensure that we meet our targets under the NDCs. You've seen so many climate policies in Ghana. Last time we started counting from 2010 up till now, and we counted about 15 to 20 of such policies. And they are coming. They keep on coming. Every government comes and does a climate policy. So I'm not even sure of what policy we are using right now, but there's a raft of policies and there's a raft of targets. When we are getting close to the deadline, we push it up. So it's not only the NDCs, but it's also a lot of climate-related targets. And then you've highlighted some of these challenges. The lack of coordination, challenges with financing, challenges around innovation. You talked about, even money and grants for research and development. You talked about poor communication and how we are not able to allow these points shift into people's minds. I mean, what is the NDC to somebody? It's a political party, How do we translate that? And I remember when we have National Prosperity Plan, which is MPP, Climate Prosperity Plan, which is CPP, National Determined Condition, which is NDC. So it's all political jargons, right? That we can see. But then, what does it mean with regards to the implementation of the targets that we've had? So maybe your last thoughts would be very, very much appreciated. I'll start with you, Doc.
So before I share my last thoughts, I think that Daddy here said something, that he came here because of the issue of disaster and the fact that how can we, climate-related disaster, and how can we address these things. And so the disaster management framework has various pillars, but unfortunately in our setting, we are more reactive rather than responsive. And so the idea about disaster risk reduction management is that we should be able to look ahead, plan ahead, have early warning systems and all those things in place so that we are able to defend ourselves against the challenges of the disasters that happen. But unfortunately, we don't plan ahead. We allow the situations to happen. So I remember I saw somebody's status that happy annual flooding something, because we are supposed to expect them every year to happen. And so it has everything to do with, it is not that they do not know. And one thing they will always tell you is that they don't have the resources to be able to make the interventions ahead of time. And so we should be able to prioritize what our key areas are. We cannot do everything, but we should have certain narrowed down priority areas and then invest our resources on that. With my last words, immediately we came here and the room was virtually empty. I was not surprised, because who cares about climate? I mean, climate change itself scares a block you, and it's a human responsive attitude. Anything that is far-fetched and you cannot immediately do anything about, you block your brain around it. And I heard a lot of the students saying, where are they having the AI? So why is AI interesting to them, but climate has nothing? It is the way we are communicating the issues around climate change. And I, in particular, am happy to have entered the climate change space. I am a pure social scientist, a development planner, but I decided to specialize my PhD in climate change, education, and communication, because I realized that we cannot change people. Remember, our focus is climate action. And so we cannot see the action when it is at a scientific level. We must be able to break the science and bring it down to the story level, to the everyday relatable issues. And so when we are talking about climate change, we should forget about the net zeros and all those kind of things. It should be, how am I getting my food? How am I getting my water? How is it affecting my future activities and all that? So communication for me, it's really the thing. And it is high time as a country we begin to focus our energies on how we are able to translate our ideas, because it's the people at the grassroots who are going to take the action. It is not a top-down. There's little that the top can do, but a lot that we can do at our individual levels.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doc. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I want to say something about what Uncle said. There is an engineering solution to this flooding issue in Keta and even in Accra. Take for Accra. What causes the flooding? It is rain. Water is on the surface. Where does it go? Through drainage. Drainages channels are blocked, so the water will grow and flood. We can all decide that. Look at the number of households in the catchment. If everybody decides that, okay, I want to have a poly tank, connect my roof water. When it rains, I channel it in there. I don't even need the water. After the rain has subsided, maybe the next 1 hour, I just open and let it go. If everybody does that, at the end, we are going to reduce how much water will be looking for access to go to the sea. And that will reduce our flooding issue. This assemblies can do. They just need to enforce their bylaws on physical development. The Tema harbor, they built into the sea. Is it being flooded? It doesn't get flooded. I'm coming. We can build similar thing and block that thing so that the water cannot get to the surface. But the political will and the resources is not there. If a party, if any government today says that we are going to build that defense wall, they will do it. And the flooding there will be a history thing. So there are engineering solutions. It's just that we have not decided to do it, or maybe, let me say, we don't have the money. Thank you. So that is a thing. So this NDCs, I don't know, have we decentralized itself? Most of these decentralization issues are just documentary. There are reports. Assemblies prepare your climate action plans for doing this. They have prepared the report. Who goes to find out whether they are doing what they said they would do? So it is a whole upside down thing. If we really want to do it, let's do it. But if we are maybe reporting because of funds and resources and KPIs they have given us and we are meeting, I don't think we are really fighting the fight. That's what I will say for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Yes, Dennis.
I think anytime it gets to my end, Doc and Prof just finish the matter. So I always have very little to add. I think the central point that Doc and Prof has also mentioned is that there's a lack of policy accountability in Ghana. There's a very, very lack of policy accountability. When we agreed on the NDCs, we prepared the 2009 National Climate Change Policy. Other sectoral policies came on board. Now we then have our first NDCs. We've done almost about 4 communications. We've done the second NDC. We even did an updated version. We are now doing NDC 3.0. But there is a small community of policy accountability, people who are interested in the whole climate conversation ongoing. And so, as Madam rightly said, there's just a very few people who are following through and asking the right questions. And that has been our problem in every aspect of our economy. There's a very small population of people interested in policy accountability. And so, whether the government does what is in the NDCs or not, who actually is holding the government accountable? Yeah. And so, on climate change too, in our parts as at now, it's not a political topic. Or let me say, it's not politically sexy. And so, nobody is actually going to bed thinking that if I don't fix this scarcity defense, I will lose my election. Nobody goes to bed and said that the dry spell in the north that caused a lot of food loss and agricultural productivity loss. If I don't fix it, I'm going to lose my election. Politicians respond to salience, things that will affect the ability to win elections. And until we make climate become a strong political issue that affects political vote and build a strong policy accountability, we'll keep going to the COP, we'll publish new policies, and now it appears that every sector ministry is also developing their own climate plans, which people are following through to ensure that even our policies on clean cooking solution, the things we report, are they actually doing clean cooking solutions? In terms of solar even incentives, who is following through to ensure that the incentives we say we are giving out to solar installers are actually there? Who is following through to ensure that all the things that we'll be reporting in NDC 3.0 as completed, indeed they have been completed? So there is that, as Doc rightly mentioned, there's that disconnection, disorganization at the top. And you know, before the election, we hurriedly went in to pass a climate change law, and you look deeply into it and you ask yourself, how can this chapter 6 actually address our entire problems around climate change? So it means that subsequently regulations are going to come out of it. Who is ensuring that whatever government puts on paper actually gets done? And I think it comes down to the communication. The more we communicate and empower people, then we build a strong set of policy accountability. And the thing is that money is being spent, whether we ask questions or not. Money is being spent day in and day out. We are applying to the Global Climate Fund, Global Environment Facility. Bilateral partners are giving us money. And it appears now every DP is spending something on climate issues. Who is actually ensuring on the ground that the work is done? Until a journalist went to Pualugu, where the dam was supposed to be constructed, we didn't even know that it was just a metal sheet fence around a place that we were thinking a dam is ongoing. But as at now, we spend almost 12 million on the contractor, but no work is done. Who is asking those questions? And it comes to the communication. Do the people in Pualugu know that 12 million has been given to a contractor? Do the people in Keta know how much the Keta Sea Defense cost? Do the people in Accra or in other rural areas know how much money has been allocated to that district for clean cooking? Until we build policy accountability, we will keep gathering and talking, but nothing really gets done. So I think it boils down to policy accountability, and I think it connects to the communication part.
All right. Thank you so much, Dennis. Yes.
And it's not just communication alone, it's also education.
Yeah.
You know, and ensuring that, you know, the different stakeholders, the youth at community level, people understand the issues and they can relate to it. So my suggestion is for publishing and media to be a rallying point for all the different you know, entities that are associated with this, so that we can put together some information and then disseminate it appropriately. We had the bus boys here, right? People need role models. There should be stories about them. There should be a show, you know, telling everybody about the wonderful work that they're doing. There was a young lady who came up here to talk about the schools that she's been visiting. And we need to outdoor these people through the media and through publishing. And I must tell you this, as part of our work, we collaborate with a publishing company in the US. And it's very interesting. During election time, even the nursery catalogs have information about the two parties in the States. I was quite surprised when I saw it. At that level, they're actually teaching the kids what politics is, what each political party stands for, and what have you. We just don't have that kind of dissemination of information in our country. And it's very important that we mainstream these conversations to the point where you stop someone on the street, they can do a gig to, you know, to something or other. I recall that when we were changing to the metric system, there were songs. I'm not a fanti, but there was Enyife Enyifa Nanyen. We sang those songs. And up until now, I still remember, you know, the aura and some of the things that happened around that time. We need to get to a place where we can make information emotional, because emotion is what leads to action. So once it's emotional enough, stories are being told about it, and stories don't have to be fiction. They can be non-fiction. Real life situations, you know, are being outdoored about some of these policies. You will be surprised that the very people that we're targeting will take it up and become bigger and better at it than those of us who are sitting in air-conditioned rooms trying to, you know, talk about the different policies. We've normalized like stuff that doesn't work. I think we're at a place where Ghanaians have a hustle mentality. Like if it's not hard and grinding, then it's not good enough. And this is very hard for all of us. So we have to get to a place where it's more relatable and it's easy peasy for us, and it's, you know, everyday language. That way we can begin to see the policies working out.
Thank you so much. I think we can do better for them, and we clap for them. Our time is up. Just two quick quotes that I gleaned from the discussions. We cannot see action when it is just at a scientific level, and then emotion is what leads to action. So I would end the panel with these two statements, and I believe that let us brighten the corner where we are. There may be little political will, but we can have our own human will to drive the climate action agenda. Thank you very much. God bless us all.